Welcome back to Winning Hand. My name is Boomguy, and this is the deck series where my friend Andy and I talk about decks. Andy, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm so good. And this, as I just told people, is a series where we talk about decks, but it's more than that. We talk about decks you should be playing, and we talk about deck builders you should be paying attention to on Marvel CDB if you are not already. We have had, 11 episodes or something so far. I think this is episode number 12. I've been bad about numbering them, but this is one of the ones I've been most excited for. What are we talking about today, Andy?
We are going to talk about multiplayer decks, how to build for the table.
Hallelujah. I'm super excited. Multiplayer is where this game shines, in my opinion. I know there are a bunch of true solo truthers out there. Good for them. I hope they enjoy it. True solo is fine, but this is the real way to play the game, and I will hear no other gaslighting.
Ooh, man. Talk about advancing the cause.
I'm throwing down the gauntlet on solo players. I will not be gaslit and talking about that's the true way to play the game. No, not true. You can play it however you want to. If you like solo, great. I also like it sometimes, but multiplayer is where it's at. The Con of Heroes is coming up very soon.
Ooh, speaking of multiplayer.
Yeah, what a segue.
Yeah.
My gosh. It's like almost like I planned this. Okay. So we have a bunch of decks today. I have chosen a single deck builder who built 4 decks that all go together.
4.
Previous episodes, we have picked a card or a hero or an interaction as like the theme, as a reason to pull out decks. This time we pulled multiplayer decks out. So I picked one deck builder who built 4 decks that are all linked. They're meant to be played together. They are a set, and I'm super excited to share them. Andy, you have 2 decks that go together by the same deck builder as well.
Absolutely.
We might be breaking our rules a little bit because we wanted to highlight deck builders who had a slightly lower profile. And while these are certainly not the biggest deck builders on the site, they are not kind of the brand new to deck building people that we've highlighted in the past.
Yeah.
Also, full disclosure, I should say that they are friends of the channel. You brought 2 decks from Astrodar, who was on my recent panel discussion, as were you, Andy, talking about the con, and has been on the channel before. And I picked 4 decks from Chaldeus, who was also in that panel discussion, also a good friend of the channel. So I know these people, but that is not why I picked them. I did scour the site to find awesome multiplayer decks. And there are other examples. I think we're going to have more multiplayer deck episodes, but this is just the first one of those. So without further ado, I would like you to start, Andyr.
Okay.
And I would like you to go through. I'm going to share your decks. You have an aggression deck and a leadership deck.
Absolutely.
Which one would you like to start with?
Let's do the leadership one, because that's going to lean into the aggression one. So this is by Astrodar, as we've mentioned before, and he built a deck around a book series that I unfortunately have not read, but after this, I definitely do want to read. Now, one of the things that you'll notice that I also want to give a call out to is that he runs this pretty great blog site called the Alter Ego Chronicles. So I'd highly recommend, there's even a link there, click on it, tons of great stuff, but there's also a more full explanation of these 2 decks and their interactions with each other, though I'll try my best to kind of summarize why I picked these as a multiplayer for 2 main reasons. But let's talk leadership. Let's do blue. So this is Storm, and the name of the deck is called the High Storm. I see what he did there. And it's a leadership deck that contains the cards Kid Omega, Maria Hill, Phoenix, Squirrel Girl, and Sunspot for the allies. For the events, we have Core Set Classic, Lead from the Front, 3 of them. For player side schemes, we have Call for Backup and the new recruits, which means that you'll bring the linked cards, even though they're not in the deck list, they'll be set aside, those 4 allies. And then for resources, we have everyone's favorite doubles, Energy Genius Strength, 2 Power of Leaderships, and then for support, we have 2 command teams, a team training, team building exercise, and 1 Uncanny X-Men. And then for upgrades, we have 1 cell phone, 2 danger room trainings, 1 leadership skill, 1 mission leader, and 2 sidearms. And this is my favorite example of a multiplayer deck that is just geared towards stacking the table. helping everyone out to do big things. And so part of the goal of this deck is to gear up for its counterpart, which is an aggression ally swarm. And once again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But this deck has so many ways for you to help bump up the person. First, it's Storm, so she can go Thunderstorm in the High Storm to do +1 attack for every ally or every character. And then you lead from the fronts, bump them up another +1. Cell Phone lets you target another player to do an action and give that person a +1 attack or +1 thwart, so you can bump up another one. Add a Danger Room Training, which for 1 cost gives you 1 hit point, +1 attack, +1 thwart to an X-Men ally. And that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, +4. Oh, and sidearm to an ally. So that's +1 attack and ranged. So that's +5 or +6 at this point, because I lost track.
It's a lot.
It is. And this is a great way of showing like how you're going to help the table, because a lot of these things are meant for targeting other players. So you would basically, this is whenever we do these in aspects where you're incentivizing the other person, that's usually the term that I think of is here, you're incentivizing other people to play their allies, because you're going to hook up those allies. And then there's, of course, the multiplayer classic, Maria Hill. Whole table draws a card. You can't get away from that goodness. And this is definitely, I think, a great multiplayer deck, because lots of actions on the table and lots of ways to choose other players and do things for other players. And that's a great key of a multiplayer deck, is that it's thinking about how can I assist the other players at the table.
Yeah, I really like this. I like decks like this. I've always enjoyed the support archetype and building a deck that just empowers other people to do things at the table without really doing much yourself. And so many choices here are great, right? Command Team is awesome because it can ready any ally. It doesn't have to be one you control. I think a lot of people forget that sometimes. Mission Leader is great. Cards for the table. Sidearm doesn't have to be played on an ally you control. Same with Danger Room Training. Can go on any ally. That's just really good too. I do think the allies also provide some of that too. Like Sunspot is going to get rid of nasty attachments that the whole table has to deal with. Squirrel Girl and Kid Omega are just going to pop any toughs that are out there so your allies can get to work. Marie Hill draws cards for everybody. I find Phoenix to be a slightly odd choice here.
Yeah.
I don't, unless there is, and maybe we'll see in the next deck, if there's an X-Men ally that you want to stick around, it's essentially a game time in ally format. Maybe there's another one that we're going to use that for, but I don't see any clear targets in this deck. But other than that, the new recruits are fun. Passing out allies, everybody. Call for backup just gets more allies in.
Yeah.
Like, this is a really fun deck.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, talk about a way to make sure that the whole table is engaging in an ally strategy. Like, you're just hooking everyone up, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I like this a lot. I love that this is what leadership can be. Just, when you get away from the solo way of playing the game, which I was joking earlier, there's no wrong way to play the game. If you enjoy solo, please play that. But this leadership has the potential to just do so much more at the table, and I think that is really cool. It's uniquely positioned in some ways. So I like this a lot. I think we should go look at the one that is, well, before that, let me just say, you were talking a little bit about the write-up, and I can share this here too. This is the site that Astrodar runs, called Alter Ego Chronicle. He is a big Star Wars Unlimited player as well, but lots of Marvel Champion stuff. And then this post, which I'll link down below, but it is also in the deck list that I will link below, has the 2 decks, and it talks about all the stuff that's going on. This is a pretty lengthy article, and so we are kind of summarizing a little bit of it here, but it talks about different stuff you can do with it. So there's a ton of information there. So please do go check that out. And give his blog a follow, because it's well worth it. Astrodar writes some really good stuff. Let's go to the second deck now. This is Storm Leadership. The second deck is
Bridge
Cyclops
4.
Aggression, Bridge 4.
So this deck is going to be the counterpart, and you'll notice that it has a ton of allies, and they are all X-Men. So as we talked about earlier of allies and X-Men allies, this is what this other deck is going to have. Now, I know we have High Storm on real quick, so I don't know if you want to bring up Bridge 4.
Oh, yep.
There it is. Awesome. Or maybe it just wasn't up on my screen. Sorry, everyone.
We're good.
But this one for a like cards, it has 11 allies. They are Beak, Colossus, Gambit, Nightcrawler, Polaris, Professor X, Psylocke, Rogue, Triage, Wolverine. For events, we have 3 Team Strike. For resources, we have 5. The doubles that everyone should love. I'm just kidding. If you don't love it, it's okay. But Energy, Genius, Strength, 2 the Power on All of Us's. For supports, we have a Boot Camp, Stepford Cuckoos, Team Building Exercise, X-Jet, Utopia, X-Mansion. And then for upgrades, we have 1 Gatekeeper, 1 Marked, and 1 the Direct Approach. And this is the counterpart because it has all of those allies that you are going to want to continue to use and get ready. And all of those bumped up attacks in this deck in particular is so that you can take the Team Strike and just obliterate, because Team Strike is 1 cost, play only if you have the X-Men trait, exhaust your hero and any number of X-Men allies, deal X damage among enemies in play, where X is the total attack of the characters you exhausted this way. So if you take the +5 from like leadership skill and the Thunderstorm and all of those things, and Boot Camp in this deck, so every ally getting like a +6/+6 to exhaust, you're doing 12 damage just from 2 allies plus whatever their actual attacks are. And so this deck is the ultimate just OTK for the table as it's set up. And Team Strike is a great tool for that. But then also, this deck is taking on the other pieces that the support deck won't maybe necessarily do, which are using things like Gatekeeper and Marked in order to make sure that you're able to do villain damage, you're able to thwart well. And the Direct Approach is a 1-cost upgrade that you attach to a non-permanent side scheme, and the attached scheme gains Assault, which means that basic thwarts can use your ATK instead of your THW. And so if we are going to be bumping up someone's attacks, man, what a great way to knock out a side scheme. You know, you have an ally thwart for 6. That's so good. Even Gunboat Diplomacy would struggle. And that's where this deck is a great counterpoint. And because it's going to manage the other portions of the table that the support deck may not be able to, because it's spending its energy into powering this deck.
Yeah, and Direct Approach pairs really well with Mission Leader, right? You're going to clear side schemes. You're going to draw cards for everybody at the table because Mission Leader doesn't have to be a side scheme that you cleared. So there's lots of good interactions happening here. This is a super interesting pair of decks, and I love this kind of synergy where you're creating decks that kind of go together. They're designed to work with each other, to bounce off of each other and boost each other up. This is really cool. I like this a lot.
Agreed. And like, you know, this deck builder is someone that people should be playing decks from. They always build
100%.
great decks. I'm always happy to get to play them. But yeah, these two combos together are really great. I will say I was kind of hoping in this deck, I mean, you know, I don't know that improving it is necessarily like the name of the game, but like adding in another boot camp just to help the Storm player out, because if they're going to be doing allies, like it doesn't hurt to like also have them get a +1 from Thunderstorm and +1 from boot camp. So those can be good. But then there are other synergies of Stepford Cuckoos are a great way to just make sure that any player who reveals a treachery, and that's one of those nice ones. And you called this out on the other deck, which is like, notice the cards that don't say like you control or you or your, because those have more table impact around them. And so like Stepford Cuckoos is when a player reveals a treachery, which is different from some of the ones that are like when you reveal a treachery. And that makes this such a better a way to handle in multiplayer than some of those others. And so like I think having those are just really good multiplayer stuff.
And I mean, you go down the list, and the X-Men have some of those in their toolkit more than others do, but you go down the list. X-Jet, generate a wild resource for anyone who has X-Men. Utopia, after an X-Men enters play, exhaust it and ready an X-Men character. So you might have played an ally, your teammate might have played an ally. You can ready Storm. In this example, Storm could play an ally. Cyclops is going to trigger Utopia to let Storm ready, or let one of the other allies that Storm controls. So Cyclops isn't getting any benefit here. He's just playing that out. X-Mansion, right? Heals someone else. So a lot of these are just so great, right? You're bouncing off, and again, the X-Men have more of that, right? X-Jet is just inherently more team friendly than like Quinn Carrier, which is just a resource generator for you. But I think that's really cool, and I think leaning into that is really awesome here.
Yeah.
I think so. I agree with you. I'm gonna jump on Team Strike as well. Team Strike is an awesome card if you can get it to work. And it is not printed, right? It is not printed. Right. You exhaust your hero and any number of X-Men allies.
Yep.
And you deal X damage among enemies in play. So you're going to split that up however you want to. And if you've got Boot Camp, if you've got Thunderstorm, if you've got that right there is already 2, right?
Yeah.
It gets crazy. Team Strike can go wild if you run a good build. Yeah. Some of these allies, Colossus 3 base attack, Wolverine 3 base attack. It's
Gambit
5 with Boot
3,
Camp.
What's
that?
Gambit could be 3 or 4 if you time it right with Magneto.
Yes, Gambit could be 4. So you have a lot of things to do here. I think this is really cool. As you can see, Boomguy left a comment several months ago. I forgot I'd left a comment. Yeah. But yeah, this is a super fun pair. And I kind of want to use this before we transition into the decks that I want to talk about. I want to talk a little bit about multiplayer decks generally.
Yeah.
So let's pause for a second before we go on to the next set of decks. And let's talk a little bit about what makes a good multiplayer deck. We just provided some examples right there, but why don't you add to that? What, in your mind, Andyr, what makes a good multiplayer deck?
Yeah, I feel like for multiplayer, one of two things really occurs. Either, especially, and I think multiplayer in the 3-4 player count, so either you're going to soon become hyper specialized in what your aspect is meant to do. So if you're a Justice player, you're going to really focus on big thwarting. That can be one aspect of it, and I think that's what we all kind of think about when we build out is how can I do my aspect really well? But the better part, and this is actually what I love about the core set for precons, is that they're actually meant to like continue to give things to the table. And that to me, like cards like Helicarrier, Avengers Mansion, core set cards that let you choose players and help the table so that you can ask like, hey, who needs a resource? Who needs a card? I'm gonna make sure to help them out. And then the other is like take with you the play under any player's control, because you never know how that can really change the game. And one of my favorites that people don't really consider is Ready to Rumble. Is a play under any player's control. So that when someone has to flip down to heal or flip back up after they healed, they haven't necessarily wasted a total activation because you helped make sure that they could ready. And I think like that can be such a good way to plan for the table. I think the same is true of statuses. Confused statuses in 4-player are a little rougher, but like planning to have confuses to make space for team members to go to flip to alter ego can be really beneficial to the table. So start thinking less about like, hey, I'm going to use the confuse so I can flip down so I can do all my things, and start thinking like, hey, how can I make sure these other players are set up? How can I make sure that attacking is easier for the protection player who's probably going to exhaust a ton? Or if you're the protection player, how can I make sure that I'm helping mitigate for the table the villain phase? That's
a great point. I think your first instinct if you're not used to playing a ton of multiplayer, your first instinct, you go into a multiplayer game, you think, okay, it's 4 players. I'm going to play Justice, which means I have to thwart massive amounts of scheme, right? Like I have to just thwart so much. And there are some decks out there that go crazy. Miss Marvel has a number of variations on her that you just thwart massive amounts every turn and nobody ever worries about threat. Yeah. That's one way to go. But I do think playing off each other is more interesting. It can be a little more subtle. I mean, I do like that hyper specialization sometimes. It's really fun to just be like, look, I'm playing Nightcrawler in protection. The only thing I'm going to do is defend everybody as often as I can all the time. I can't really provide anything else. Like, I don't have anything else to give you. That's okay. I think I do think your point about confuses is interesting, because in a multiplayer game, if you're not used to playing a lot of multiplayer, the statuses are just less valuable.
Yeah.
I think if you play primarily or almost only solo, confuse can become a crutch, and stun as well, but mostly confuse. I see solo players all the time. You can't flip down unless they're confused. Your advance is going to lose the game, blah, blah, blah. Whether or not you believe that, we can have a different discussion there. But the point is, in a multiplayer game, someone's always flipped down. In a 4-player game, like, it's not that big of a deal. There's plenty of threat threshold. No one's going to lose an advance unless you are already pretty deep in the game, and at that point, maybe you don't flip down. But if you have a Justice player who thwarts a lot, that's better than a confuse. They just clear the main scheme and go ahead. 2 of you can flip down. It doesn't matter. We have plenty of threat mitigation. So I do think as you're building decks out like that, getting away from confusing is just fine. Like, you don't have to worry about Professor X doesn't have to be in every deck anymore if you're playing in a multiplayer game.
It frees you up to be able to do other things, like to take that second copy of Sense of Justice to give to someone.
Yes. To kind of illustrate some of what you're just talking about, I am going to share a deck that I have open here.
Nice.
Where is it?
And while you're bringing it up, I'll also say, hey, some of those planned or any players and resource generators can be really huge. I think of Sense of Justice, pass out all 3 of them, give them to the other players at the table. Then when you play Team Investigation, then they already have 1 resource to pay towards the alliance because you gave that to them.
Yeah.
And now Team Investigation, easy 12 threat. Easy.
Yeah. So here's a deck that I am planning to bring to the Con of Heroes. I don't know if it's a finalized list yet, but the idea here is very simple, and it kind of illustrates what you're talking about. In a multiplayer game, I'm playing Captain America and Protection, and this deck is all about passing out multiple copies. I'm giving out crew quarters. I'm going to be using Night Nurse to heal people, Endurance to give everyone at the table, Ready to Rumble to give everyone at the table if you do have to flip down, Armored Vest to give to multiple people, Unflappable to give to multiple people. Established Perimeter, Render Medical Aid are pretty clear. Muster Courage, an underused card, honestly, in a multiplayer game, especially if you're playing Expert. Being able to get everybody else a tough card is incredible. Get Behind Me, another one. Get a Treachery, fine. You can attack Cap, I can take it. And then Mockingbird to provide a stun, and Black Widow to provide a little more encounter card protection.
Yeah.
This deck is just entirely meant to support everybody else. I'm going to give everyone a crew quarters. Everyone's going to get an Endurance. You're going to get Ready to Rumble. You're never going to have to worry about health. I'll keep everyone's health up. I'll get the tough cards out there. But then, Cap's, versatile enough that he can thwart a little bit here and there. But I'm not really going to be providing a whole lot in terms of damage or threat mitigation or minion management or anything. It's just health.
Yeah.
But what this deck does is it frees all the other plays up. So it's okay, I'll just take a hit to the face. I don't have to worry about defending. I don't have to worry about chump blocking with allies that I may want to use for something else. It frees you up to do those other things. Instead of, I think, the same play pattern. If you play mostly solo, you've probably gotten into a play pattern often that you enjoy, obviously, because you're playing the game. But what it does is, it's like an ally, activate, chump block, confuse, flip down, eat that confuse, right? You're just these kind of things that you're hitting where this can free you up to say, look, I'm going to play Black Widow. Black Widow's a fun ally. I don't know if it's the most powerful ally, but it's cool in a deck like this where if anybody pulls a bad card, we can just mitigate it that way.
Yeah.
So that was just, I just thought of that as we were talking. I didn't mean to share that before we came here today.
That. And a good note, Black Widow, also core set, is just when an encounter card is revealed. It isn't your encounter card. It isn't a treachery. That's, once again, what makes her so great is that it can be for anyone. And then the other thing in terms of multiplayer that I think is worthwhile, it left me. That stinks. Well, too bad, everyone. I'm sorry. I can't remember my multiplayer thing.
Oh.
That's so sad.
It's okay. I think one of the things that's important to remember about the game, and the reason you've brought up these core set cards is so cool, I think, is that the game is meant to be played in multiplayer.
Yeah.
It works at solo. It's great at solo. It's great at all player counts, honestly. But I think that it was designed, and interviews with Caleb have talked about, it was designed to be played in a group, right? You're playing with other heroes. You're not necessarily meant to play by yourself, which is why I think some solo players get frustrated because they don't have enough confused statuses that, they lose to advance, and that's not fair, whatever.
Yeah.
I sound like I'm being really critical of solo players. I'm really not. But they are a vocal minority of the game. They are very vocal online. That's all.
And that does actually, thank you, talking about the core set. On-table actions. That's another huge one to make sure that you have. Because calling for actions is a big piece of the game that we often forget about. And so, as the other deck that has cell phone, where you get to, someone can call for the action for you to use it, but it has to be on the table. Same thing with team building exercise, but actions on the table are so much worth it in terms of creating that multiplayer feel. So be careful of the things that are just self-focused, and then the things that maybe you can't play upgrades from your hand off turn, but unless you house rule it. But if you don't, some of these other on the table cards can help you either play the things you need to for others or help others out. So on the table actions, consider that as a part of how you build for multiplayer.
Yeah, no, I totally agree on that. Those are all really good points. What can you think of some cards off the top of your head, or we can look at some here? Cards that you think are more valuable in multiplayer, cards that improve with the number of players going up.
Yeah, so the one that comes right away, I know I've mentioned cell phone 3 or 4 times. I'm gonna say it one more time. I think
throw it out. It's good.
Huge. Another one that I think is a little underrated in multiplayer is team investigation. Some of those, same thing with even the odds. We don't really consider them in 1-player count or 2-player count, but in 4-player count with clear side schemes, please bring even the odds. So those definitely come to mind. The ones that have better scaling, and will let you play to other players.
I also think the math of the game changes, right?
Yeah.
I think in a solo game, there are just some magic numbers that you can hit. 3 thwart is a big one, right?
Yeah.
3 thwart clears a lot of those player side schemes. So when you're building a deck for solo, you put a player side scheme out and you think 1 basic activation wipes this, which means I can play it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Or same thing with some of the other non-player side schemes, right? Playing one way or another draws you a bunch of cards, and it's boom, 1 activation, I can clear the problem I just created, and it's worth it.
Yeah.
In multiplayer, one way or another starts to get a little dicier because you're putting out 12, 15, 16 threat, and it's this is no longer something I can immediately clear up. Yeah. And so that's a card. It's the opposite. I feel like that one starts to lose efficacy as we get into higher player counts. Whereas ones like Team Investigation, like you said, any of the Alliance cards, same thing.
Yes,
You just gain more value the more players you have.
Yeah.
I love the Alliance keyword. I love the idea of it. I think some of the cards need a little bit of tweaking. They're not my favorite, many of them. Some of them are incredibly powerful. Some of them are a little so-so, ho-hum.
I do feel like they've gotten better in this round of them than the first round. Because I like the Guardian Avenger ones, but sometimes the cost of the amount
it's a little prohibitive.
Yep. Yeah. One other card that I definitely want to call out is Med Team, because this when it first came out, I know a lot of people didn't necessarily like it. It's okay.
It's fine.
One of the best things in multiplayer, whether it's Make the Call or MedLab, these target any ally. So any ally that's defeated by consequential damage, exhaust MedLab and you can grab that ally. It's a great way to make sure that if someone's key ally just left the table, you can grab it and then get to play it. And so I guess don't stop them from doing whatever their deck is, but utilize the fact that you can grab other people's allies and bring them back out as if it's from your hand. So Sunfire that we had called out earlier, who can get rid of attachments. Man, when he goes out to consequential damage, get him with MedLab. He can come right back out. Please consider that piece of some of these cards.
Yeah, I think Make the Call is another great example. Make the Call pulls an ally from a discard pile. Any discard pile at the table. That is an incredible ability, right? If you're the leadership player, you don't have to just focus on recurring your own allies. You can pull someone else's signature ally out. You can pull out another powerful ally someone just had. So MedLab works. Make the call. It's going to pull them out too. Those are both really, really strong. I think you just have to... it's almost like you think about the game differently, you know? You have to just like shift how you do the math in your head about each stage of the villain, about each minion. Everything is just a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. And protection players, if you want an example, Flow Like Water, one that we don't often consider, is play under any player's control. So hand that card out so that people can play their defense cards and do a little bit of extra damage.
Yeah, their signature defense events, right? You're going to hit them with that. Same thing with Armored Vest, Energy Barrier, or not the Energy Barrier. What's the other one that I'm thinking of?
I'm not sure, but Unflappable is also play under any player's control.
Electrostatic Armor. That's the one. Also. So Unflappable, Electrostatic Armor, Armored Vest, Flow Like Water. You can create a protection archetype for another player with all those cards you put under somebody else.
Yeah.
Those are super, super good.
That's also any
Containment
hero,
strategy.
like,
and
affects that card.
The Astonishing X-Men, you don't need to be an X-Men to do it. Like, read the cards carefully. Anybody can play that. X-Men just get a bonus.
Yeah. Multiplayer it's a different mindset when you start looking at those cards. Especially, like, I see like a 2-player as kind of separate from a 3 to 4. Once you get into those higher player counts,
yes,
it's just a different feel to the game, and it's pretty great.
It is. It's a nice change of pace if you don't do it a lot. I think another card I wanted to highlight that I think is quite good is Indomitable. I think Indomitable is a card that people forget about. I feel like it had some play early on. It's a little ho-hum now. It's a core set card, but it's an upgrade, protection, and it's after your hero defends, you discard Indomitable to ready your hero. In a multiplayer game, this is great because there are just times when you're the defense player, if your goal is to defend other people at the table, there are times when you just can't ready yourself again, or you play a desperate defense and you don't hit the trigger and you fail to get that ready because a huge boost card came out that you couldn't see coming or whatever. Boom, Indomitable. Ready yourself. It's just like you pitch it down there. If you get stuck, you can hit it. So I think that is another good card that I really don't run in solo, but I do run quite a bit in multiplayer games.
Yeah, that's a great call. Yeah, it is crazy to me how those core set cards really, really do shine in multiplayer.
They age pretty well, actually. The core set's pretty strong.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is kind of... let me ask you more about... We did talk a little bit about extra cards that we pass out on the table. That is something that is a line of text I think a lot of people skip on a card. And sometimes I catch myself as well. I have to go back and think, wait a minute, is such and such a card I can play to other people? Is such and such? All those basic upgrades, Armored Vest, Combat Training, Heroic Intuition, those are all play under anybody. So if you bring a multiplayer deck, think about those cards that provide value to other players. So we looked at the Storm deck a minute ago, and that has Mission Leader, which is great. That draws everyone a card. Maria Hill, that's great. Draws everyone a card. But if you're running boot camp, like you mentioned, why not put 3 boot camps in? Give them to everybody. If you're running Justice and you have Heroic Intuition, why not give everyone Heroic Intuition? That's +1 Thor to everybody, other of the hero at the table. So those are good. Skilled Investigator is a classic one. 0 cost. Put 3 of them in your deck. Give everyone Skilled Investigator. I think, is Martial Prowess?
Martial Prowess is, yeah. You can help everyone generate
just like you said,
resource.
Sense of Justice. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nerves of Steel for you protection people.
Nerves of Steel is a little more niche, but yeah, it works, right? You can still use it. Those are just really, really good ones. And think about those. Think about those. If you're going to the con, if you're going to a multiplayer game, think about those cards. Think about how you can tweak your deck a little bit to include things. Maybe you can take out that copy of Professor X and you can put in a second copy of Heroic Intuition, or other things like that. The other thing I do think I mentioned, the status cards kind of losing a little bit of value. The last thing I'll say about it, I think tough cards actually gain a little bit of value in higher player counts, as they'll stick around until you need them, whereas the status kind of falls off and it's harder to predict who's gonna grab those status cards.
Yeah, I do like that. I think toughs are underrated in larger.
All player counts actually. I think toughs are underrated at this point in the game.
That's true, very true. Because like you said, Muster Courage, when it first came out in like Wasps or Ant-Man's pack, we weren't necessarily like jumping to utilize Muster Courage, but now like I almost considered if we're doing expert and I'm playing an Avenger in protection, like,
Oh yeah,
I'm bringing Muster Courage with me.
it's such a good card, man.
Yeah.
If you're playing expert, just being able to pass out even two toughs. So what's a 3 cost? 3
It
cost
is
card.
3 cost, yeah.
I feel like 3 costs passing out 2 toughs is still worth it. It gets a little dicey at standard at the first level. Like for 1 tough, that's a lot to pay. You might as well pay invulnerable. Invulnerability, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But at 2, I think it's totally worth it. At 3, that is an amazing card. Like giving out, if you're the protection player, right, in this Captain America deck I showed, the idea is to give out a tough card to everybody else at the table.
Yeah.
So all 3 of you all have a tough card. I can defend for myself because I'm Cap. We're good to go. We got everything. So yeah, those higher player accounts, cards like Muster Courage are incredible. And cards like Get Behind Me, like I mentioned, that card, like there's going to be a bad treachery just about every round that you would like to cancel, right? So it's not like drawing into it. There's every round, if you draw into it, there's going to be time to use it for sure. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about? Multiplayer decks, how to build for multiplayer.
I feel pretty good about all of those. I will say, like, I want to be careful not to like overwhelm people too much, but I think, like Boomguy said, is a great thing. If you're starting with a base deck, you're like, how do I multiplayerify this deck? Look for what is play under any player's cost.
Yes.
Shove the other copies. That's a great way to get started on it. And then as you start deck building, just start looking for those cards that will let you, because I think more and more are coming out all the time. Like one, I know we're just throwing cards at y'all, and I'm sorry, but like North Star ally just came out, but he's a 3-cost ally. When a boost card is turned face up during an attack, deal 1 damage to North Star, cancel all of the boost icons, the Ys on that card. Like,
that's good.
That can be anyone's.
It's like Defiance on a stick.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, like, please take note of those ways that it can benefit the whole table.
And I think that's a great point. The last point I'll leave people with is if you're new to multiplayer and if you play a lot of solo or low player counts, but primarily if you're a solo player, look at the decks you build. You don't have to build totally new decks, right? Yeah. Like Andy said, if you're playing a Justice deck, maybe put another copy of Chance Encounter in or 2. Put another copy of Heroic Intuition, Sense of Justice, things pass around the table for sure. But maybe also just look at your deck, and if you're building a solo deck, you often have to cover all your bases, right? I got to have a little bit of defense, I might have a little bit of healing, I got to have some thwarting, I can be able to do some damage. But you maybe don't need to have all your bases covered, right? If I'm bad at card names, but it's the 0-cost Justice event. When you clear sides, can you do 3 damage?
Turn the tide.
You maybe don't need that 3 damage. 3 damage is less impactful in a multiplayer game anyway, just the numbers. But also, there's someone else to do that damage. So you can take those 3 cards out, and you can add maybe some more thwart cards that spread the thwart out. You can add cards to give to other people. So think about the cards that you put in to cover up weaknesses of your hero, and just instead scrap that, because other players can cover your weaknesses. You don't need to do them all yourself with your own cards. So you don't have to take your decks apart. If you have a deck you really like, if you have a hero you really like, just tweak it a little bit. Don't worry about covering your weaknesses as much, and pass out cards to other people. I think that's great advice. Let's jump into the next set of decks. And this is
what
from
did you bring for multiplayer?
Yeah. This is from deck builder Chaldeus, and I'm super excited to share these. We're going to start.
Great deck builder. Are any of them Nightcrawler perchance?
Well, you will find out soon, sir.
I will find out.
But you already know the answer. It's Chaldeus.
That's true.
So he built a series called Uncanny X-Men Roster 2024, and he has 4 different decks. So these are meant to be played together. They are a 4-player group. And he has the other decks here. He does have 5 decks, so you don't have to just play the 4. You can pick 4 of the 5, but he has Gambit. As you can see here, he has Rogue, Nightcrawler, Wolverine, and Jubilee. He lists the aspects here. He has links to the deck, so every deck has links to all the other decks. It's easy to find. And he has a little bit of background at the top. I'm not going to go through the whole write-up. You can do that yourself. He talks a little bit about the deck. Then he has a section that's called Synergies with the other decks. Then he has a section called Roles. So it gives you an idea of what your role at the table is. If you play these 4 decks or 4 of these 5, and you're playing this Gambit deck, you're primarily working on thwarting, and your secondary is damage dealing and card draw support for the other players. So I'm not going to read through all these again, but these are really helpful. He really has broken down the decks and look at what you should be doing with each one, and I think that's really, really helpful. There's key synergies called out, key cards called out. So let me just read this deck now. For people who are listening and they're not watching this on video, this is a Justice Gambit deck, multiplayer designed, and it has 6 allies: Bishop, Blindfold, Dazzler, Husk, and Marvel Girl, then of course a signature ally. But we're just reading the non-signature cards here. For events, he has 3 copies of 3 Steps Ahead and 3 copies of Waylay, 1 copy of the player side scheme Generation X. He has the 3 basic double resources, Energy, Genius, and Strength. Weapon X is the only support, and then he has upgrades Endurance, 2 copies of Heroic Intuition, 3 copies of Mission Training, 2 copies of Sense of Justice, and 2 copies of Skilled Investigator. So that is the deck. And I think it's important here to call out, right? There's a lot of allies in here, but the Heroic Intuition you can give to other people. Skilled Investigator you give to other people. Sense of Justice, same thing. Mission Training can be played on any X-Men ally. It doesn't have to be yours. If someone else has an X-Men ally out, put it out there. So this is doing a lot of different stuff, and I think this is a strong deck on its own. I mean, you could probably play this in solo. There's enough allies to give you some variety. But again, no confuse, right? Yeah. We're not confuse locking anybody here. There's no Professor X. There's no upside the head. The confuse, I think that is like the biggest thing for solo players. Confuse is just not that valuable in a multiplayer game. It still is. Stopping an activation is just always valuable on some level.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is not the live or die that you have to flip down, right? It's not the crutch that you maybe have come to rely on in solo play, because it's just much stronger there. Okay. Next, we will go to the Jubilee multiplayer deck. I'll read off the deck list. I'm not going to go through the write-up. They're all the same. They have the same categories that are bolded, little categories to go through. Worth your time reading. This one has Boom Boom, Dust, Gold Balls, Sunfire, and Tempest. Those are allies. If I just read those words to anybody else, I don't think anybody would know what we're talking about. 3 copies of Dropkick, 3 copies of Full Body Charge, 3 copies of Multi-Talented, and 3 copies of Press the Advantage. 2 copies of The Power of Aggression, 1 copy of Danger Room, and then 3 copies of Attack Training, 2 copies of Combat Training, and 1 copy of X-Gene. So this is, again, the basic upgrades, Combat Training. I'm guessing those are meant to both go on somebody else because Jubilee's not using her basic activation.
Yep.
And this does lean into some statuses, right? Press the Advantage, Dropkick, and then Jubilee has a whole bunch of statuses on her own.
Right. And that's the thing of, like, if your character hook is statuses, that's great. And I think this deck, in addition to, I think, like, Creel Charmer in the last one, but, like, you get to be intentional about how to use it. And like you said, like, if you have a character like Jubilee and a character like Gambit, Press the Advantage is going to be a great way to just get damage, rebate, and then get to do more.
I love Press the Advantage. It's such a good card. But like squeezing use out of it is an interesting little puzzle. I think that's really a really fun card. I think, so Jubilee, so the main takeaway here is not that Boomguy said solo players rely on Confuse too much, but I feel like that's going to be the TLDR for some people. That's not true. Maybe Boomguy thinks that, but that's his personal opinion. What he's really saying is don't rely so much on statuses. And in the 4-player game, Jubilee's a little squishy. She might need to flip down. Gambit likes to flip down.
Are statuses the new Daily Beagle for you? No, I'm kidding.
Oh, that's a deep cut. If you know, you know. No, but Jubilee might want to go down because she's squishy, and Gambit wants to go down anyway. And there may be turns where you're both flipped down, and the villain is not confused, but it will be okay, right? There's plenty of thwarting. So I think it's important just to underscore that. Let's move to the next one. Of course, it's not a Chaldeus deck build without Kurt Wagner, the incredible Nightcrawler.
Be there.
This is a no ally other than his signature ally build in protection. So he has 1 copy of Face the Past, 3 copies of Gem Flip, 3 Not Todays, 3 Sidesteps. He has the player side scheme Specialized Training. No other resources. It's interesting. I want to talk about that. He has 1 copy of Angel's Airy, 1 copy of the X-Jet, and then 2 Armored Vest, 2 Change of Fortune, 1 Deft Focus, 2 Electrostatic Armor, 3 Under Control, and 3 Unflappable, and 1 X-Gene. So this is interesting. And this is a little different. There's no resources in this deck.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting way to build any character, right? I think, I don't remember the last time I saw a deck, to be totally honest, that had no resources at all in there.
That is definitely bold and brave. Because, like you said, like we always think of resources, but, you know, if your cost curve is in that one realm, like just looking at it, there's 1 card that costs 3. Everything else costs less than that.
And there's 5 cards that cost 2. There are 27 of these cards that cost 1 and 8 that cost. So 35 of the 40 cards, of the 41, cost
so maybe
1 or less.
Isn't that useful or helpful to you here?
Yeah.
Which is great. Also, back to the whole, like, what cards can you bring for others? This deck has 2 that I didn't even think of until reading it, which is Change of Fortune and Under Control. And those are great multiplayer cards. Like, after a hero defense, it doesn't have to be yours, but then 4 damage gets to be done. And then Change of Fortune is play under any player's control. Like, that's pretty huge.
Yeah, and, you know, paired with Under Control, you're going to pass out cards to other players. This is fun. And Caldeus is the Nightcrawler master. He is, you know, Nightcrawler is to him as Vision is to me. He's known for Nightcrawler. He's obsessed with Nightcrawler. He's a little jealous that Nightcrawler isn't as good as Vision. But, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, Caldeus.
I do believe that is going to be the debate of Con of Heroes 2025 is who would win in a fight.
I mean, green is the new blue, and I'm sorry, but Vision is here to stay. You know, why defend when you could just be intangible is what I always say, but more to the point. So specialized training, obviously, in this one is a great one for multiplayer, right? Specialized training, you defeat it, you pull out a specialization upgrade. It's linked to those cards, although I don't think it's actually linked. It doesn't have the linked keyword, but it's linked, whatever. And you pass out one of those upgrades to people on the table. That's a great example of a cool multiplayer card, right? That you could just give everybody something at the table, and it works really well with how these 4 decks are built, because you're going to have a defender, a thwarter, an attacker. I mean, like, generally that's what you have anyway, but it's cool. You just give out everybody more card draw, right? Because you're going to give them the thing they want to do anyway, and then let them draw cards. Face the Past, I would have to remember what Nightcrawler's...
It's Azazel, who actually...
Seems a little nasty.
Right, comes out to quick strike you, so I'm a little surprised to see Face the Past here.
That is a little...
If you want to be able to bring him out, you can do it.
I'm a little surprised to see Not Today rather than Riposte in this deck.
Yeah, it seems like they want to cover the thwarting bases, because both Jump Flip and Not Today are removing threat, as opposed to Riposte, which, you know, is the damage side with Sidestep. Yeah, Sidestep deals the damage if you paid with the lightning.
He's got it in here too.
Yeah, so like, it definitely seems like it's geared towards helping on the thwart side, which once again is a good thing to be able to do, to have cards that do your role well, but then have like a kicker that can help the table.
Yeah, he says right here, if you read, Boomguy didn't read, the secondary role of this deck is thwarting and minion mitigation. The primary is damage blocking. So, you know, I think that... Yeah, says here, Face the Past is an amazing card for Change of Fortune. Gets your ally out. Nightcrawler can just defend the quick strike and then ready and draw a card. So, yeah, I think this is fun. I think Nightcrawler is a cool hero that doesn't sing for me. I don't dislike him, but he hasn't really, like, hit that top level. Are you a big Nightcrawler fan?
I'm a huge Nightcrawler fan. Like, I like Nightcrawler a ton here in the game.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is he... I mean, he's no Iceman, but he's not bad. I do love Iceman.
I feel about that. Iceman is great. Like, I know people were a little underwhelmed when he first came out, but he is a great hero. I don't know. This whole wave I considered pretty A tier, like through and through. And you know, tiering means nothing in terms of like, it's my opinion. But I fell in love with Nightcrawler. It's ironic that like I don't have a good idea on how I do Nightcrawler in protection, which is what he is best at.
Yeah.
But like in the other aspects, I love having Nightcrawler.
You built, we're a little off track here, viewers, listeners. You built a cool Nightcrawler deck recurring his BAMs, which have a fist resource, which you use for drop kick and other kickers. I quite liked that deck. That was fun.
Thanks.
Caldeus is a number of X-Men, or rather Nightcrawler decks that I've played that are really cool.
Yeah.
But
it's
let's
okay
not
if
waste any more
Nightcrawler
time.
doesn't speak to you, and like that's okay for the other people who are like, yeah, Nightcrawler was meh. It's just I disagree, but that's okay. There's still one more deck in this multiplayer deck.
There's 55 heroes, and not everybody loves Iceman either. But
Absolutely.
all right, the last one in this group is the Uncanny X-Men roster 2024's Wolverine in protection. So I'll read the deck list off. He has Armor, Colossus, Elixir, Northstar, Polaris, and White Queen. Come Get Me Bub, 3 copies. 3 copies of Defiance, 1 copy of Fastball Special, and 1 copy of Unlikely Duo. He has Render Medical Aid and Superpower Training as the 2-player side schemes. The basic doubles, Energy, Genius, and Strength. The Night Nurse and Utopia. And then Energy Barrier, 3 copies, and Judoka Skill, 2 copies, which is interesting. So this Wolverine deck, the primary role is healing and damage blocking, and the secondary is damage dealing. So that's how Caldeus has written this one. I think, so one of the things I'll say right away, before we get, as I was reading this deck list, it occurred to me that if you are building this set of decks, right, I think if you're building them all yourself with your own collection, you are going to run into limitations of just cards, right? There's only so many Utopias. It's also unique. There's only so many allies, so you may get to some of the allies that you don't like as much, but you have to put them in because you're running out of X-Men allies. That can happen. But I think this is interesting because it does have Unlikely Duo, which is easy to hit because someone else is playing Jubilee. Fastball Special is a little harder to hit, but is probably easily the best team-up card, like the strongest one.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even think it's particularly close. I think this is a very good card, and the other ones are mostly bad cards. Or like they're severely limited. I'm trying to get away from good and bad binary talk on cards. They're really limited. There's a lot of hoops to jump through, but for this it works. Like you're jumping through a lot of hoops, but this can really pay off. Jumping through a lot of hoops for Young Love doesn't feel as good. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out of, and even on the multiplayer side, like if you are playing someone that has a team up card, and you've said this before, so I'm just reiterating, bring the team up card if you're playing someone that has that available to them. And you see that here, Wolverine has both his team up cards in this deck. In the Gambit one, if you know that Rogue is going to be around or you're going to play Rogue, like bring Beauty and the Thief, bring the team up cards.
Yeah, I think if you're coming to the con, but really if you go to any multiplayer, meet up with people that you don't know in advance, any hero that you're bringing that has a team up card, just throw them in a sideboard at the very least, right? Just sideboard it, and then when you get to the table, you say, look, I'm playing Wolverine. Is anybody playing Colossus or Jubilee? And if no one is, cool, you just leave it in your sideboard. If someone's like, oh yeah, I was thinking about playing my Colossus deck, you're like, awesome. Put your copy of Fastball Special in, I'm putting in my copy of Fastball Special, and we're going to go hog. Yeah. So I think that's a good thing to remember. And also, and we talked about a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is very con-focused. Bear with us. We did talk about a lot of the stuff in our panel discussion. You can check that. It's a couple of videos ago or podcast episodes ago if you're listening to this. One of the things we mentioned is finding things that can be used that are not unique. So you don't need to have the X-Jet. You could just have Helicarrier. In 90% of cases, it is functionally the same. Now, in that Nightcrawler deck, for example, he specifically calls out X-Jet because he's playing a lot of defense events. And Helicarrier is not going to A, hit the kickers for the lightning resource, and B, is not available out of turn. So in that case, it makes sense to have X-Jet. But if you're playing solo, generally they're the same, and it doesn't really matter which one you pick. But in these multiplayer games, it can matter. So just think about that stuff for the table.
Yeah.
Quinn Carrier is the same thing, right? Quinn Carrier. I feel like people build Avengers, they throw Quinn Carrier in, but then it's like, oh, we have 3 Avengers at the table, and now everyone can't have Quinn Carrier. Helicarrier is an easy swap. For most of the hero decks, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Agreed. And those are all great call-outs of managing your uniques and and making sure that the right use cases are able to have them.
Yep. Yeah. Some of these, I mean, Defiance is a great card because the rules of defense, we're looking at the Defiance, a 0-cost defense event. The rules on defense mean if you play a defense event or if you defend, you become the target of the attack, you pull the attack towards you. This is a cheap way to do that, right? The enemy is attacking. I have Defiance in my hand. You don't want to get attacked. I can just play Defiance. That makes me the defender, and then I cancel that boost card.
Yeah, that's so nice of canceling a boost card. So you're just going to take just the villain's printed hits probably.
Totally fine.
Yeah, unless you lost the chief medical officer in a random happenstance in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but that's a different story.
Oh, is that one of the campaign cards?
Yeah.
I have not played the campaign cards.
We just lost him yesterday.
They're still in the box.
Too many secrets.
Maybe someday I'll touch them. I don't know.
They're pretty fun. But yeah, I definitely agree with you of like, what a great way to pull the attack towards you. And there are, I'm going to give one more shout out as the cards just keep coming to mind.
Yeah.
We haven't seen any of them here, and I didn't even call any of them out, but Target Acquired is a clutch card. And at least like as my gaming table has done the expert twos through the different campaigns, Target Acquired has become our favorite must-have card because canceling a boost ability is so clutch.
Yes. And it reads, after a boost card is turned face up, discard Target Acquired and cancel that card's boost ability. Doesn't have to be you. It's anybody.
Anybody.
Right? And the thing I love about Target Acquired is it's not only like a safety, it's a backstop, it's a preparation if you have a hero who cares about that. It also thins your deck. Like if you never use it, you've just thinned your deck for your better cards. So that's the other thing to think about when you're building multiplayer decks and you're giving out skilled investigators to everybody. Not only are they happy, but you now have 3 fewer cards to draw through to get your awesome signature events. So if you put Ready to Rumble on everybody, you put Skilled Investigator on everybody, you put Target Acquired, like your deck is only 28 cards or 25 cards and you're just getting this stuff so fast. So another thing. All right. Those are the decks we talked about today. I will link all of them down below. With a set of 4, there's really 5, but I only showed off 4 of them. And then we have the set of 2 that are posted by Astrodar. So I'll link his blog and all the things down there. I think, so I'll just kind of end. I'll give my final thoughts and I'll let you give a final thought here. I think multiplayer is where the game sings. I think it's so much fun. I think it really comes alive when you feel like you're going as a group, right? You're all fighting this big villain, but you're all there and you all have different roles and different powers and different cards. And being able to, make the call to grab someone else's ally, and the rogue player at the table can play superpower training and grab something else out of your discard pile, and this I'll defend for you, and then cool, well, I'll give you this, I'll cancel your boost ability with Target Acquired. All those interactions, I feel like, really make the game come to life in a way you just can't get playing by yourself or even a 2-player.
Yeah.
Those larger player counts, right? It's only in one turn. It's like, oh, I can cancel that ability with Black Widow, and I can use Target Acquired to cancel that thing, and then like, well, I'll defend for you, and all right, flip up, and then I cancel the side scheme, or I defeated one, so now the skilled investigator I gave you draws you a card. Like, there's all these different things happening. Yeah. This is super interesting, I think.
Yeah, agreed. So, and my hope for people, like, if solo is your main play or 2-player, I'm excited for you to get to try to find a way to do a 3 or a 4. For me, 3-player is my favorite, even though it's not my most common. The scaling of everything is just really cool, and so I want people to enjoy the multiplayer side. But also, if that's not something that you have because of just where you're at or things like that, it is okay. But I do feel like this game has a different feel in multiplayer, especially when you play with people who also know the game. And not to do another plug to the Con of Heroes, and for anyone who's not going to be able to make it, like, I encourage you to find it next year. But like, whenever we've done 4-player games here, it's usually because we're teaching another couple of people how to play, and the game feels slow as people are learning the cards and learning how to play. And so you might think like, oh, I'm going to write off the 4-player experience. But you take that to the con when everyone knows their cards and everyone is playing exactly what they want to play and know how to play. The game really does have, it takes flight.
Yeah, it opens up, and there's so many times and you're like, oh, I'm so close to this, and someone goes be like, oh, I'll call for action, ping that tough, now you can get your thing through, and like, oh, like, there's just so many things that happen. I'm not here to yuck anyone's yums. If you love solo play and you don't want to play with other people, like, that's fine. I will die on the hill of there's no wrong way to play the game.
Absolutely.
If you are enjoying it, God bless you. I hope you're having fun. That's what matters. We all love the game. And if you're coming to the con, but you're a little overwhelmed or you're a little worried because you only play solo and you didn't listen to Boomguy and all of his amazing deck building ideas,
all of his wisdom,
that's fine. If you disregard all that wisdom, that's okay. If you just have a deck that primarily you've played at solo player counts and you don't know how to tweak it, you can play that deck too.
Yeah.
The very, very, very best thing I can say about this community is that everybody is welcome and nobody cares what deck you're building. If you built a jank Valkyrie deck that you've never tried before, you're not sure if it works, and you completely faceplant, nobody is going to be upset. Nobody's going to judge you if your deck isn't super optimized. No one's going to judge you if you didn't thwart enough. Like, nobody cares. We're all here to have fun. So take all this with a grain of salt. I hope you enjoy yourself. If you're coming to the Con of Heroes, I hope to see you there. If you're not coming to the Con of Heroes, I hope you play multiplayer in your own locations. Think about going to the Con next year because it's great. But that is it. That is the decks we wanted to focus on today. I think we should do another multiplayer decks episode. I had a really good time talking about these, Andy.
Same. I'm excited. I think it'd be a lot of fun to find more sets like that because, like,
yes,
in Marvel CDP they don't come up all that often.
It's hard to find
tying
them.
decks together.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to talk about more. And man, I actually meant to say this as my last thought, and then you sidetracked me, which is like Chaldeus and Astrodar. If you have not checked out their decks, please do that. Please like their decks. They're all pretty great. I mean, like them if you like them, but they're pretty phenomenal deck builders. Worth giving a look.
Yeah, hit them up on Discord under the same names. They're both also just all around good humans. So check them out and say hi and tell them you played their deck. That'd be awesome. Well, that is it for us today, Andy. Thanks for everyone sticking through this longer episode of All Hands on Decks. This is kind of what we're moving towards, right? We had a weekly cadence before. They were shorter. We're now moving to slightly longer episodes, a little more exposition in them. Hopefully you all like that. I think we can kind of dig deeper into some of these things, which is cool. So be nice to everybody out there and enjoy playing the game, and we'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.